Anyone at tennis courts?
Let's just say chronologically, I may be a little bit more senior than some of my colleagues, but in terms of being able to interact and from a learning perspective, from the experiences that have been brought to the table by a lot of the newer people in the room, specifically Peter, specifically Alexis, I can tell you I'm probably one of the youngest of the lot.
Tell me about this tourism authority. Your party's pushed this and still got nowhere with it. Is there anything in the new plan, the national plan, that gives you any hope?
I think what we will be doing is to just plain do it. I think there's been a reluctance. We hear members of the government picking away at the edges and saying that, oh, we kind of support it, but. And there's always this but. I don't know what the problem is. The challenge is, though, that we are not making progress on the tourism front. And we are not making progress because we have people in place who, however well-intentioned, do not have the expertise. And until such time as we employ the necessary expertise to be able to bring our tourism product to the point where it needs to be for the benefit of all of Bermuda, then we're going to continue to be at sea. We're going to continue to be lost. We just plain have to do it with the implementation of the Tourism Authority.
And if the budget coming up so soon in any way brings the money down from tourism, would you be horrified?
To be perfectly honest, nothing will surprise me with the upcoming budget because there is no money. That is just the reality. And I do believe that the government will find itself between a rock and a hard place in terms of where to put the dollars that they have available. I think that to not fund tourism effectively would be a travesty. Bermuda depends on it. Our economy depends on a successful tourism product. And if we are not able to provide it, we have to then be a peg-legged economy. And that is a disaster for Bermuda going forward.
Sorry, one more question, please. Peter, as an accountant, you must have been watching all the economy problems of the country quite closely. If by God's luck, the heavens opened and you were given the chance to put something in the budget, what would it be?
To put something in the budget?
Yeah, what would you like to see the budget address primarily?
Well, as I mentioned in my speech, I want to change the framework of the governance here in Bermuda. And, if there was a wish list, we would have the money in place to make sure that we set up a tourism authority, to make we set up an independent contractor general. To make sure that Bermuda is working for Bermudians, and the Bermuda government is getting value for their money, because right now we really are not getting value at all.
Any advice on this whole issue of the duty that's being now discussed at quiet level between the chamber and the government and the finance minister? Where do we go with the duty?
Yeah, I think this is just a laundry list of knee-jerk reactions that the government has been doing ever since we've found ourselves in trouble for the last couple of years. They're picking at this, picking at that, and it's not going to cut it. We need a plan. We need a substantive plan that gets us out of this mess that this government, I think, very much created.
Are you sure you would want to be part of a party that took over this?
I wouldn't be here if I wasn't 120% sure.
Thank you.
On tourism, staying with tourism, would you consider, Mr. Barrett, would you consider slicing out the tourism department and tossing the money over to the private sector with stringent rules as to what they must do with it, and then supervising them very closely? There would be, of course, a jobs loss among senior civil servants in tourism.
The amount of job loss is debatable. Setting up an authority will not, by definition, take a bunch of bureaucrats and other senior government officials and make them redundant. There are certain people within the Department of Tourism who are doing their best to do a good job, but they're hand-tied to do the right thing for Bermuda. And what we would propose to do is to transfer them out from the Department of Tourism into the new Tourism Authority. So it will be a transfer of cost as opposed to a new cost. And much can be same with the Contractor General.
My question, Ms. Pamplin.
Yes.
What if the OBA doesn't make it to government, be the next government, what next for you?
What next for me personally?
That's the reality of it, yeah.
What next for Bermuda?
Yeah, Bermuda or even you.
Well, I can tell you that from a personal perspective, I will continue to work assiduously towards the betterment of our community and to be able to have whatever input I can in order to make Bermuda a better place for all of its residents. From a Bermuda perspective, if the One Bermuda Alliance is not successful at the next election, all I can say is we all need to get carpet burned because we need to get on our knees and pray. We are in dire straits, and I don't believe that Bermuda can really afford much more of the position in which we find ourselves. So we need desperately to ensure that there is a change. As I mentioned, we are at a crossroads, and unless and until the people of Bermuda are willing to say that they've had enough of mismanagement, enough of fiscal indiscipline, enough of cronyism, then, you know, if they are not prepared, if they are satisfied with being miserable, then there's not an awful lot that we could do. But certainly from a One Bermuda Alliance perspective, we offer a better alternative.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
May I ask Mr. Richards a question, please?
Mr.
Sorry,
Richards?
Paul.
I'm supposed to be part of the background here.
Get two Richards. You got the old and the new.
Oh, no.
You can't get away from
I wasn't sure to make
Yes,
room
sir.
for it.
During the last few weeks, discussions have been taking place behind the scenes between the Chamber and the Ministry of Finance about what are you prepared to accept, what could you accept in the retail, in other divisions of the Chamber. And the recommendation that's been put forward that at the last count was we would accept a 10% increase on top of the current figures, like 6% for clothing, we'd accept 10% on top of that. What would be your reaction if that was true?
I would have to basically see what they come up with. I am kind of at the moment looking at this whole thing sort of from 35,000 feet altitude and sort of looking at a big picture at the moment. And my focus has been less on things like duty rates than more on initiatives we can take to reduce costs inside the government, and also more on initiatives that we can put in place to increase government revenue without raising taxes. That's been my position like for 3 years. You know, we can stimulate the Bermuda economy without spending more money, and we can stimulate the Bermuda economy without we can get more revenues inside the government without raising the tax rates. Because raising the tax rates is by definition a depressing, destimulating action. So, the key thing here is what is the government going to do to get more tourists in Bermuda and get more international business personnel in Bermuda spending money, right? I should put it back the other way, because the first priority in my view is to get more international business personnel in Bermuda. That's what's wrong with this economy. You can talk about duty and that sort of stuff. That's a kind of yesteryear type issue. You know, when the Timex watch was just ticking along, those are the kind of things you adjusted just to raise a little bit of revenue here with some customs duty and that sort of stuff. The Timex watch is broken. It's broken. You know, they say it takes a licking and keep on ticking. It's not ticking. If it is, it's running backwards. It's running backwards. So there are much more fundamental things that have to be done with this budget than adjustments with customs duty rates.
Tossing a number into it, I think customs brought in around 220 million last year. So if there was a 10% upward adjustment, it would mean adding $22 million to the customs duty income.
Right.
but the public, the consumer, would see that as a $22 billion increase in
in,
their cost.
that's
It would
right.
be
Mhm.
inflated, of course, by all the other costs added in. That would act as either a stimulant or a de-stimulant. Which do you think it would be?
Well, it certainly is, when you increase taxes, it acts as a depressing factor on consumption. There's less money that consumers have to spend. So, you know, if you want to, you don't raise taxes in an effort to stimulate the economy. The only thing it does, if you're lucky, it'll increase government revenues. Remember, this government already increased taxes and found out that it didn't increase the actual revenues that they thought, because when you increase taxes, people change their behavior. You know, the people aren't machines. They change their behavior. They don't want to pay extra tax, so they change their habits to reduce the amount of taxes that they have to pay. So just because you add 10% on customs duty, it doesn't mean you're going to get 10% extra revenue. That doesn't work that way. So we're dealing with people and their preferences and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, my focus is on, as I said, you know, on getting more customers. That's what we're lacking here.
Yeah, the base.
Got to get more customers in this island if we need to turn this thing around. And we also have to sort of ratchet down the spending on government.